Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's main event featuring brother versus brother. In the red corner, from Indianapolis, Indiana, an ER doctor, a Christian, a Republican, Dr. David Blank. And in the blue corner, hailing from San Francisco, California, a computer scientist, an atheist, a Democrat, Dr. Doug Blank. Now it's time for the Blanks to rumble!
Hey, welcome to another episode of Blank versus Blank. Donald Trump has been impeached for the second time, and today we're going to talk about what does that mean moving forward. So welcome, brother.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. I notice, so today is January 17th. I notice you're wearing a short sleeve shirt out there in San Francisco, and I'm wearing a turtleneck and a sweatshirt here in Indianapolis, and it is snowing outside again here. Looks like the sun is shining there.
It is. It's another beautiful day in San Francisco.
Yeah.
No earthquakes yet today. We had a big one yesterday, but
Really?
oh yeah.
That'll
About
shake
once a
things
week
up.
we have one that shakes the house.
Really? Does that happen very often?
Once a week.
Really? And
Yep.
is that, I had no idea that it was that common.
Yeah, we didn't either. But it's also true that the kids on the other side of the house, they don't always feel it. But I'm up here on the second floor, so if the house moves a little bit, if my camera starts vibrating, it's just another day in San Francisco.
All right. Weird. I did not know that. But so I'm going to start out today by pointing out that in our last prediction blog that we did with Blank versus Blank, and I can't remember, it was it was a few years ago. My prediction at that time was that Donald Trump was going to be the first president to be impeached twice. So I will pat myself on the back for that.
Did you say that as a joke?
No, I said that with all sincerity, because the Democrats were saying they were going to impeach Trump before he was even inaugurated. And so I thought there's absolutely no chance he's going to get through 4 years without them coming up with something to impeach him for. And my prediction was it was going to happen more than once, just based on his personality and the rancor at that time. But turned out to be true, but they just squeaked it in at the last second, which kind of brings us up to our topic today. So it's impeachment part 2 for Donald Trump. So my first question for you is, was that a wise move for Democrats, or is that actually going to be an Achilles heel for Democrats as we're on the eve of Joe Biden's inauguration?
Yeah, so I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head. That's what Democrats in the House and the Senate are talking about. The first part was sort of easy because the Democrats currently have the House up until January 20th. Of course, they'll still have the House after that, but they have the House now, but not the Senate. So it was easy to take a vote, and they didn't do the trial like they did last time. I mean, officially, the trial happens in the Senate. So if you recall back earlier this year or last year, we have the House will prepare the documents for and then vote on impeachment. That carried twice. So President Trump is the first president to ever been impeached twice. But after impeachment, it goes to the Senate, and then the Senate votes whether or not to convict. And if you get convicted of that crime, then you're expelled as president, and the vice president would take over. So the first time around, there was a lengthy collection of data because it was pretty certain that it wasn't going to go any further in the Senate. but I think the idea with the House was we'll basically do the trial in the House, collect all the data, interview all the witnesses, because the Senate's not going to do that. And so then we'll pass that off to the Senate, and then there'll be a little bit more pressure on them to actually convict the president of collusion with a foreign government. Of course, the Senate did not vote to do that, and so he continued to be president. And then this past week, of course, because of the insurrection attack and Trump's leading buildup to that insurrection, the House very quickly voted for impeachment, which did pass. And as far as I know, that hasn't been sent to the Senate yet.
No, it
So
hadn't.
the state we're in right now is Nancy Pelosi has the impeachment conviction in her hands, and she's waiting to see what to do. And I think part of that timing is based on what Mitch McConnell is going to do. And he sent conflicting messages. On the one hand, he said, nope, we're not going to get to it until maybe January 19th, 20th, somewhere in that range. Of course, at that point, he won't be the House Majority Leader. He'll be the Senate Majority Leader. He'll be the Senate Minority Leader. And so it won't be a problem for him to deal with. But the other thing that he has leaked out of his office is, you know what? I might actually vote to convict Trump. And if that happens, well, it's a sort of a moot point about whether or not he gets thrown out, because he's already been thrown out. The people voted and threw him out. So the really important point about this, I believe, this week is something related to that, and that is they can actually vote regardless of whether or not the Senate finds him guilty. They can vote so that he's never able to run office again. And that has, of course, the Democrats would be happy never to have to say the word Trump again. But there are some Republicans that I think would be very happy not to have to run against Trump in a presidential election. And some of those people are Republican senators.
Yeah. So this kind of raises the next question. So do you think that actually, before I move to that next question, I might pose a different take on Mitch McConnell anyway. So before the House impeached Trump, the Senate was already on recess, and they are scheduled to be on recess until the 19th. And so it wasn't that Mitch McConnell didn't want to take up any articles until then, but he did say that I'm not calling everybody back early just for that. So
yeah, and it was his choice.
Yeah.
He could have called him back.
But everybody's home, everybody's away from Washington. So that is not a little thing in the time of COVID to try and get everybody back just to start an impeachment trial that was kind of done at the last second and without any kind of hearings or anything like that. But like you pointed out, the evidence here is different, and it's not quite as nuanced as that first case. But another take I might have with Mitch McConnell, and this is just me talking, is I think his quote in that article was that he was happy that Democrats had taken up impeachment. But I don't know that, without having seen the article, I don't know if he actually said he was happy to take up the case or happy to move forward on it. And it may just be that looking forward as the minority leader, he may be thinking, yeah, that's great, because if we have a Senate trial, this could drag on for months and months and months into Biden's first term. And this may actually be a big win for Republicans, because we can maybe delay this in the Senate for who knows how long. And
yeah, I think that's part of his tactical.
yeah. So when he says that he's happy that Trump is impeached, it may be he's happy that this process is ongoing, uh, rather than he's, antagonistic towards Trump.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't think the wording, I mean, I think it was a purposefully leaked article. And I don't think it was about him being happy. I think it was more about he might vote to convict.
yeah, and I took it to be just the opposite. That I didn't see anything about him voting one way or the other. But the next question, moving forward, do you think that this is just a political move, or do you think this was a legitimate impeachment?
Well, I mean, in some ways, if you have an impeachment trial and you get a conviction, there's nothing more legitimate than that. So, I mean, you can argue that it was political or not, but I don't think I pay pretty close attention, probably more than I should, to these kinds of things, and I didn't really see that. Well, the first time around, they probably weren't going to get a conviction in the Senate. So, why would you go forward with an impeachment that's not going to get a conviction? Well, I think for a lot of Democrats, they see that as something that you just have to do. I mean, if you see somebody breaking the law, but you think, you know what, they're just going to get released by that judge. I'm not even going to arrest them. No, if you're a good cop, you go ahead and you do your job. You arrest them and you take them to jail. And the judicial part is a separate piece of the puzzle. You can't pre-think it too much. You just basically have to do your job. And I think that's true in this case. The Democrats, I don't think, especially in this time where Biden is getting ready to take over, and we really need to focus on COVID and getting his cabinet in place. I do not think that they want to wrestle with talking about Trump and have him in the headlines any more than possible. So from my perspective, I don't think this is something that they really wanted to do. I don't think it's going to help. It's not political in the way that it's going to get votes. I don't think it's not going to do that. It's something that they feel they have to do for democracy. But that's just my perspective.
Yeah. Well, and I think this time around, it is a little more straightforward. At least their reasons for pushing for impeachment. That first impeachment, I'm almost wondering if Democrats are wishing they had not done that, because it kind of watered down the process a little bit. It just seemed like that one was politically motivated. The evidence was weak, and the arguments they came up with, they had to have all those hearings to try and explain that was there actually some crime committed, and it was very nuanced, whereas this seems to be a little bit more straightforward.
No, I disagree. I think they're completely both straightforward. If Joe Biden does either one of those things, if there's a transcript of a call with Joe Biden talking to any foreign person, and he says, "Okay, but I want you to do me a favor, though. I guess Josh Hawley, is that his name?
I don't know.
Hawley was in your country. Can you dig up anything on that? Could you take a look?" If he does anything like that, I would immediately vote for impeachment and removal.
Yeah.
If Biden incites a riotous mob to attack anything, a Walmart, I would vote for him to be impeached and thrown out of office.
Yeah. Well, one thing that does make me think that this is a little just kind of politics is, number one, it's the timing. Impeach, and this actually brings up the question, is this even constitutional from this point forward? So he is impeached, but the whole impeachment process is to remove somebody from office. And so the question is, can you actually hold a trial to impeach someone if they are no longer in office.
That's
And
happened before.
well, it happened one time before. That was the Secretary of War
Yep,
back
that's
in
enough for me.
1876. A guy named William Belknap.
Yep.
He resigned during the process. And so during his trial, he was acquitted. But he was acquitted because the majority of senators felt that once he was out of office, it was no longer constitutional as a question. And so they did proceed with his trial after he resigned. But the point is still up in the air. Is that still a process that you can have after they're out of office? And the language in the Constitution seems to be fairly clear, but like a lot of things in the Constitution, it's so brief that it leaves some opening for question. And we'll find out moving forward if Trump brought any kind of a suit that this is no longer even a constitutional issue, it might just get shut down. The other thing that
One thing that we learned during the last 4 years is that, the Justice Department and the president, they are the top cops and the law enforcement of the country. And the Senate and the House, they decide what the laws are. So if they decide that the law is X and you broke X, they set their own rules.
Yeah, but the Supreme Court is still the arbiter of whether something is constitutional or not.
Yeah, and as long as they stay within the vague wording of the Constitution, I think they would be safe. But I don't really know anybody, a Democrat or Republican, that really cares that much about whether or not Trump is convicted. Like you say, it's moot. So I suspect if it's in the hands of the Democrats, they're not going to let it drag on. They're in charge of the Senate. Why would they let it drag on for weeks or months or hours even? They wouldn't do that. They would just say, all right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, it doesn't pass.
Yeah, but there are rules in the Senate.
They set those rules.
Yeah, but there are rules of objections, and if this is a trial, gathering evidence. Now, if they have a trial and they say, well, the Republicans can't bring any evidence, anything that's exculpatory, or President Trump himself, who's the defendant, can't have any witnesses, can't have anything, people aren't going to accept that as legitimate.
No, they wouldn't do that. But no one cares. He's out of office. He's gone. No one cares. Republican.
You got to remember that President Trump got the second most votes of any presidential candidate in history. So when you say no one cares, I think you're wrong. I think there are plenty of people who are going to care if it plays out or not.
Oh, no, I don't think that matters. I think what you're interested in, because the only outcome for the trial is whether or not he gets thrown out or not.
He's already out.
He's already out. That's what I mean.
One other thing. So I found this kind of interesting. I'll try and keep this real brief. But the other thing that makes me think that this is just a total political exercise, mainly by Nancy Pelosi, is they put this off for a week. And one of the things was they had a vote for a resolution to insist that Mike Pence invoke the 25th Amendment. And if he doesn't do that, then we're going to impeach.
Yeah.
And that was total nonsense. Well, I thought I understood the 25th Amendment pretty well. And it turns out there were some nuances that I didn't. So the 25th Amendment was enacted specifically if a president is unable to perform his duties. And so that came about after Garfield and Wilson. Garfield was shot by an assassin, but he lingered for 2 months before he died. And so there was a big question, who's in charge he's not dead, he's still the president. And then Woodrow Wilson had a stroke, and he was still in office for 18 months where he was incapacitated, but he wasn't dead. And so then the whole question was, what happens when the president is unable to perform their duties? And so they came up with the 25th Amendment. But it was not designed just to boot out the president if they've engaged in some egregious behavior. That is impeachment only. And the way the 25th Amendment works, we know that Pence and the cabinet could vote that Trump is unfit for office, but that's not really what it's designed for. They'd have to say he's unable to perform his duties, and they send that to Congress. But the president can then file a motion that says, I am able to perform my duties. And then Pence and the cabinet would have to file another vote that says we disagree with that. And then both houses of Congress would have to have a 2/3 majority vote to put the president out. And so none of that was ever going to happen. Right now, the 25th Amendment comes into play. Like if the president's going to get a colonoscopy, he can notify Congress that I'm incapacitated during this period and the vice president's in charge. And then once he's out from under his anesthesia, he notifies them, yeah, I'm back in charge.
Yeah.
And the only other time it's come into play was the whole Nixon-Ford Watergate scandal that allowed us to have an orderly progression through all of that, so that Ford ended up as president, and there wasn't any question who was in charge and who was in charge at what point. But the fact that Nancy Pelosi held a vote for the 25th Amendment, and if Pence didn't do it, then she would impeach. It's like that entire episode was all politics. I don't know if it was designed to make Mike Pence look bad, that he wouldn't.
I don't think Pence looked bad for not doing that. It made him very loyal, and I don't know of any Democrat that thought that he would do it. I mean, if there's one thing that Pence has proved over the years is he's loyal. So I don't know why you say it's political. I don't see any.
Because it's the wrong cure for the problem, and it had zero chance of being successful by the statute. So either Nancy Pelosi doesn't understand the 25th Amendment, and I don't think that's true, which means that whole episode was just politics to say, yeah, we're going through as many motions as we can. We don't really want to impeach him. But that was the goal the whole time, was they were going to impeach him.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think they would have been very happy. I think most people would have been happy if he had resigned. That sets up so many other possibilities. Pence would be president. Wow. I mean, it would only be 5 minutes, and there would be a debate on whether or not he gets his own library. But, Trump could be, he would resign. Pence would be president. Pence could pardon him. And so there wouldn't be any issue about whether or not Trump could self-pardon himself for crimes. I mean, ideally, I think that was what everybody was hoping for. Just resign. It's okay. Save face. But he didn't do that. And so
I think the chances of him resigning was zero.
I don't know about you. I don't feel like I have any idea of what he's going to do today, tomorrow, or the next day. I mean, I think he's going to pardon a lot of people. I wouldn't be surprised if he pardons all the rioters at the January 6th insurrection. I mean, what else could he do? He wants to have a military send-off. I think the Pentagon said, no, you're not doing that. Did you hear that He wanted to have some kind of goodbye parade.
No, and I don't know. I haven't seen that on any news sources anywhere. The
Okay,
Huffington Post say that.
I'll send you some links, and we'll up your news reading ability. But he was like, I want a goodbye. If I'm going to actually leave the White House, which it looks like I might have to, and he said this like, just 2 days ago. I want a military. I want, jets. I want red carpet. I want 21 gun salute.
Yeah.
So who knows what he's going to do? But I think Nancy Pelosi was thinking, oh, I don't see any good stuff coming out of this for Democrats, but resign, please just take him, remove him through the 25th Amendment. We don't really want to be involved in this if we don't have to. All right, we will impeach him. We did that. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Senate, maybe Pelosi never gives it to the Senate. Maybe that's a way out so that they don't have to deal with it at all.
Well, and that may be something that happens, but then it kind of raises the question, well, why did you even do it if you weren't ever going to send it to the Senate? Which
Well,
seems like that's problematic for Democrats to say, yeah, we impeached him, but we were never really going to send it to the Senate for a trial.
well,
And
they
that
wouldn't say
really
that.
makes it look politics.
No, that's first of all, that's not what I said. And I don't think that that was the plan. I think if Mitch McConnell had said, all right, send it on over, I think we can squeeze that in on tomorrow at 1 a.m. She
No,
would have said it.
like I say, that it's not, I don't think Republicans are going to look for this to be a speedy thing. If anything, I think that they will use that as an opportunity for every quote from Trump's speech that they say tried to incite violence. They will find some Democratic leader or somebody who said almost the same thing, and they'll put that on big posters to say, yeah, see, this is the same rhetoric that everybody uses, and it is not intended to incite violence. Otherwise, these other people are inciting violence too. In fact, that's my prediction. If this gets to a trial, that's exactly what's going to happen. Is they'll go through his speech line by line, and every time Democrats say, "See, that's inciting violence," they're going to pull up 20 Democrats who have at some point or another said the same thing and
Yeah.
said, "So are
Well,
you guilty as well?"
I don't disagree with you except on one point. If you recall, it wasn't just Democrats this time around that voted for the impeachment. There were actually 10 senators,
Rep-
Republican senators that voted for
Representatives.
representatives. Yes, House representatives.
Yeah.
So yeah, the only I think you're right, and I don't disagree with you that if you take a look at that text, um, devoid of any context, you might be able to not see the incendiary path that led to the Capitol. And I don't like the language of fighting and war. There's a newly elected House member, I think in Wisconsin or Minnesota. I think he's 20 years old. And he started using this language right off the bat on Twitter. And they're talking about impeaching him and, getting him thrown out before he even sits down in his own state chamber. I think that's good. I would really like to see less language like that across the board moving forward. But like any situation like this, you have to look at the details. Did Trump purposefully use incendiary language, but just come up to the edge of saying what he really wanted people to do? Or maybe he really was shocked that they ended up storming in. It's hard to imagine because, like he said, it's going to be wild. And it was. I mean, did he really think chanting from outside the Capitol building was going to have any impact. They couldn't hear people chanting. That would not have stopped the vote. So yeah, I think you could come up with an argument, like you say, every single word has been used by politicians before. Maybe not, let's all go march down there, I'll be with you. Um, he said that, but he headed straight back to the White House rather than the Capitol. And
Yeah.
then he watched it on TV.
Yeah. I'm just saying that people use that language all the time. I'm with you. We're in this together. You know, it's the question of figurative versus literal meaning. And on a legalistic sense, I think there's plenty of people who would say this does not meet the standards of incitement, but an impeachment is not a legal trial. It's a political trial.
Right.
And so the rules are different. So your take, does an impeachment trial happen? And do you think that's going to start on the 20th? Or is that going to, I mean, that would be the irony if, and I think that's one of the reasons Nancy Pelosi has not delivered the articles, is because until Mitch McConnell is replaced, yeah, he would start the trial on the morning of Joe Biden's inauguration, and all the senators would be having a trial, and that would be the news,
Yeah.
and it would completely overshadow the inauguration. So I think she's waiting until that transition takes place. But so do you think, yes, there will be a trial, and when do you think that's going to happen? They're going to try and put it off?
Well, I really don't think it's political. I think, I mean, it's going to have a political impact, like you say. You don't want to do it on January 20th. I mean, already the time between election and inauguration has been overwhelmed by Trump activity. So it would be nice not to talk about Trump for at least a day. I don't know. I think you've convinced me that it's not going to happen this week, and it probably wouldn't happen in the next couple of weeks. Whether it happens at all, I don't know. Maybe it gets sent to the Senate, and the Senate. I don't know if I forget how Mitch McConnell handled the last impeachment. It seemed like it was over pretty quickly. So I assume that.
Isn't that funny? I can't remember, like, once it got to the Senate, how long that lasted either.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody had a chance to say what they wanted to say, and then it was over. So I imagine that. I mean, I don't think that they're interested in having every single word minced in the public eye. I think they just want to end this. And if there was a way to keep Trump from running in the future, I think a lot of Democrats and Republicans would take that option. But, you know, at the risk of alienating people, no, I think this might be the last that we hear of Trump from the White House and Congress. I mean, it's not the last that we've heard about Trump, period. Of course, I think he's going to be squirming and wriggling and, you know, screaming as much as he can. But from the Congress and White House, not for a while.
So your answer to that was maybe a trial?
My main point is, who cares? I mean, no one cares.
Well, the ball has been started. I mean, if you say no one cares, I think you're wrong. And number two, they've impeached him now. And I think Democrats have kind of boxed themselves in a little bit, where you can't just impeach a president and then do nothing with those,
How
with
about
that
in
article.
the name of unity, we just bury this and we move forward? Look, this is the least of our worries. We got a lot of things to go forward on. And the main thing is that Trump is not going to be in office.
He's definitely not going to be in office.
Well,
that we can agree on.
let's hope and pray.
Spoken like a true atheist.
And now I think we can end that here.
I will see you next time.
All right.